works, the transition here. Integrated with Web of Science. Both Aplons, indeed, you already see it. Because this is the banner, you can click and get access to Aplons. Whilst Copernicus needs to be installed in general on the browser. So it works with Web of Science, but whatever discovery is going to be using. You don't see it. I don't think so. Can you hear me? It's not very good. So I should stay here. You know that I'm Italian, so I'm supposed to walk, to go here and there, and so on and so forth. But okay. I apologize since now because I will not be stuck like this for sure. Oh, sorry. May I present Marco, our country manager?
Dobar dan svima. I'm going to continue in English, even though I am Croatian, so probably most of you would understood what what I'm talking about. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming.
Please don't move it, because otherwise...
I will put it down later on.
Okay, thank you very much.
So this presentation is just, let's say, refreshment of all the products that Clarivate Analytics currently has. And I would just like to say that where Clarivate Analytics comes from, it is formerly known Thomson Reuters IP and Science Division, which was acquired by two major hedge funds in October 2016, and since then we became Clarivate Analytics with the same portfolio of products that you have been using so far. Nevertheless, we since this acquisition, we made significant amount of changes in Web of Science, in acquisition of different kinds of products, expansion of certain content, and now we are in communication with ISUM to extend the contract that your Slovenia currently has, and we are discussing about some new things as well to add on top of that. So we, with this kind of presentation, we envision to get you up to date on all the content and all the changes that we have done so far, and just to answer any kind of questions you might have that you don't know about at the moment. So I'm not going to be presenting. Massimiliano Carloni, Max will be presenting. Nevertheless, if you have any questions for me, please do not hesitate to ask. Also do that either throughout the presentation or afterwards. It's not a problem. The presentation should last about 1 hour and 30 minutes, depending on, obviously, questions you might have. So thank you very much.
And thank you very much also on my side. My name is Massimiliano Carloni, and you can call me Max. It's definitely easier, and I'm not able at all to speak Slovenian. I'm quite close. I'm Italian, as you can easily imagine. And, well, the first slides, let's see if it works. Yes, this is more or less the agenda, but as Marco said, we can talk whatever you want. So please don't hesitate even to interrupt and ask whatever questions. And I was just starting exactly to, you know, because someone just asking me which were the news. So some news. The big one was that we changed our name in Clarivate 1.5 years ago. And we did some steps towards a new company, if you want. So the partnership with Impact Story, and I will show you some results just 1 year ago. Impact Story is a company that it's dealing with open access, basically, with an application that is unpaywall for retrieving open access publications. And I will show you how we have integrated it in Web of Science platform, not only on Web of Science core collections. Almost 1 year ago, we also have acquired Pablons, that you may have heard. Pablons is the platform for reviewers, so it's the you know, sort of profile platform for reviewers. That's where they are supposed to post them in several different ways. I will not go deeper in this, but if you want to have some more details, just ask me after these presentations to post their reviews. And by the way, within the end of the year, we will be merging the Pablons platform with our other platform that you might have heard, the Research ID platform. So we will have a unique profile platform for any type of works done by researchers, or reviews or publications, you know, like similar to ORCID if you want. The most recent acquisition is Copernio. I don't know if you have ever heard about Copernio, but you will see shortly when I will go live to show Web of Science that you will have a pop-up on the bottom left on my screen, just jumping in and looking for PDF. So Copernio is basically an application that works with Google or Chrome or Firefox, Mozilla. And if you install it, it's just looking for the legal version of the PDF. Okay, so it means that based on some artificial intelligence algorithms, let's say in this way, Copernio learns which are your credentials, basically, just store your credential when you access your systems, your identity systems, any type of identification system that you may have for your subscription. Learn this data and then keep memory of this, and any time that you were surfing for some publication, it's just looking for what you can access. So give immediately access to you to the PDF, okay, without using any other type of, link resolver or stuff like this. But another news is also the relaunch of our former company. ISI, for most of you probably, is well known because in all over the world, someone is still calling us like Easy Web of Science, Easy Web of Knowledge, and several stuff. But EASY stands for Institute for Scientific Information. It was the first name of the company, as was founded in the 58, so exactly 60 years ago, by Eugene Garfield, our founder. And we have decided to relaunch this brand. So ISI will be a company into the company, if you want, a sort of think tank, so with a bunch of people that will be dealing with bibliometrics, so with everything related to the research evaluation. Okay, so you will be here basically about ISI shortly in the near future. And Marco started to talk about the product portfolio, and just to give you a full picture of what we have in our division, because Clarivate is a company made of more than 4,000 people, so it's also dealing with other type of business, pharma business, patents business, and so on and so forth. But we have, obviously, Web of Science, our discovery platform, made of 16 different databases, and we'll go through, obviously, Web of Science. We have solutions for the researchers, basically. So Researcher ID and Notes, I guess that you all know these names, but recently we have added the Pablons and the Copernio, because we have basically put, the researcher at the center of our landscape. If you think deeply, we are aiming, obviously, to be close to the researcher since the search of the paper to the access of the paper, whatever is the version, if it's a paywall version of the paper or it's an open access version of the paper. Then we do have Insights, that is another technological platform, completely different from Web of Science, with some different pieces, with some different products, and one probably is well known because it's the Journal Citation Report. By the way, in a few weeks, I think in the second half of June, we will be releasing the new impact factor, so the 2017 impact factor with the JCR 2018. Okay, so JCR is one piece of Insights, but Insights is an overall platform with other pieces. And then we have all the other products in our division that you probably don't know, but just for your information and just to know how we are also involved with, Scholar One, for instance, is probably the most used platform for the submission of papers used by publishers. And they use, obviously, our platform because we are not a publisher, basically. Again, the mantra that is also behind, if you want, Web of Science, the success of Web of Science is because we are not a publisher. So same stuff right here. Scholar One is very much used by all the publishers. Last but not the least, our CRIS systems, Converis, okay, the system for managing the research workflow. This is the product landscape. And today I will be dealing, obviously, with Web of Science, overall platform. So, first of all, I would like to give you some numbers, because according to me, numbers speak. So, this is a new representation of Web of Science platform. As I said before, there are 18 databases in Web of Science, okay? Some of them are dealing with journals. The most famous, the flagship database, is obviously Web of Science Core Collection, the new name of Web of Science, if you want, since 2014. Then we have other journals database. So some are topical database, so-called topical database. You probably know better than me, Medline or Biosis, if you have heard, some specific or subject-specific databases, okay? And then we have some other regional databases, always database dealing with journals, like Chinese, like Russian one, Korean, and so on. Why we haven't put all together all these databases of journals? Because we think, the heritage, if you want, of Eugene Garfield was that our database should be multidisciplinary. So if the database should be multidisciplinary, we don't want to inflate the database with a lot of journals coming from biology or from medical area. So we want to keep the database multidisciplinary. That is the reason we haven't put all these databases all together. And same for what concerns the regional, aspect, because you can easily understand that China, Russia are important market, important countries for any type of reasons, political, sociological, economic, obviously, and even for us, it's not a secret that China could be probably equivalent in terms of business like all Europe. And Chinese, obviously, they were not so much present in the databases because they are not historically publishing, journals and papers, or at least not historically publishing a lot of journals and papers, are obviously pushing ourselves to be present in our platform. We decided to keep it separated, so to keep the Chinese journal, the Russian journal, the Brazilian journals, all in these important countries in separate layers, in separate databases, because again, we want to have Web of Science core collection multidisciplinary on one side, but even very selective on the other sides. Would have been very simple for us just to put all the journals all together and having a huge database, and I will show you now the numbers of journals. But we haven't done this because we don't want to do this, okay? Sometimes just the number of journals is not the real asset behind a database, and I will show you why we want to keep it very selective. Then Web of Science is also something strange, if you want, not only journals, it's also other research products, because research is coming towards research objects, because nowadays, by the way, someone is talking about research objects, not anymore papers, but something that is a paper, is a data set, is a patent, it's an aggregate of stuff. And in Web of Science, we do have the data citation index, that is a repository of data sets. So in that one, top right, you will find out, when you will access the citation connection, only data sets, so no papers, but sets of data that have been posted in some repository by researchers, and that obviously might be cited in a paper or something like this. Whilst in the Derwent Innovation Index, you will find out the patents. So another piece of research, completely different, obviously, from the paper. Some research group wants to protect or to take advantage of their research, and they do patent, obviously, their research and their studies. So patents, data sets, and journals. And not only journals, by the way, even books and conference proceedings, as you know. So this is the full landscape, and these are the updated numbers. So in all Web of Science, if we look at the journal, we have more than 34,000 journals for more than 150 million of records. So if you go on all databases and search from 18th century to 2018, you will find out 150 million of records, just to give you an idea of the numbers. And something that you cannot calculate, and me as well, but there are also 1.5 billion of cited reference behind any papers. And these are the updated number, because it's the most updated figure that I can show you respect to all the different databases that we have in Web of Science platform, okay? So you have the core collection that is included in several index, and I will go through right now. Then you have some other, journal, some other database of journals right here, and this is the overall amount of journals in the citation connection. And then there are the other journals that are hosted, by the way. They are hosted by us, but they are not produced by us, for giving you the overall total of 34,000 journals that are in Web of Science. This is the full landscape. If we just break down it into the Slovenian journals, this is the snapshot of the presence of the Slovenian journals in all the Web of Science platform. You see like here. These are the historical tree index, or classic Web of Science 3 or Web of Science classics, as you want to call it them, so the historical indexes. And then the new emerging source citation index that I will go through in a moment. And the number of journals that are currently being indexed in ESCI is 19 journals. This is the most updated, but we are obviously continuously going on in that. And let's have a look at ESCI. And the first question is to understand and why we have decided to produce ESCI. Well, first of all, there was a need from any researchers in the world, basically, to have more content. We keep our Web of Science core collection very selective, the top journal, and so on and so forth for several years. But in general, in the world, especially young researchers were asking for having more content. But on the same time, we don't want to, to throw away what was our, main asset, if you want, the selectivity, the fact that we were selecting very carefully journals, and we would like also to keep distinguished journals, because I think that you all agree that Nature is not exactly the Italian journal of sport, or some other titles that you might have heard or something like this. Okay, the journals are very different. If you're a researcher, probably if you manage to publish on Science or on the New England Journal of Medicine or whatever other Bible, probably you are very happy. Okay, much more than you publish in even a specific or national journal. For this, we have created ESCI. ESCI is our solution to these two contrasting forces. For this, I put the arrows, because from one side, people want to have more journals. From the other side, people are asking us to be selective and to select journal and to even evaluate journals, because JCR, the impact factor, is there since more than 40 years. So it's has been started in the 75. Okay, so ESCI has been the answer, and these are the characteristics of ESCI. Okay, ESCI is a new index, is fully part of core collection. So this is important to understand. It's not outside the core collection, so it's part of core collection exactly like the other historical indexes are: Science Citation Index, Social Science Citation Index, Arts Humanities Citation Index. Okay, we put over there, and being part of core collection means that the papers of any issues of any journal in ESCI is indexed exactly the same way we index the core collection journals. Okay, cover to cover, meaning that we are very selective in selected journal, or once we have selected a journal, we keep indexing all the document types of any issue of the journals, okay, without selecting anything else. So we just start to cover everything of the journal when the journal is good to be selected. And another key characteristic, obviously, and we keep having all the cited reference for any single paper of ESCI. So this is the historical idea, if you want, of Eugene Garfield for interconnecting, obviously, the research, because citations were, as Eugene was used to say, connecting bridges between papers and so on. So it's a true citation index as well, and it is multidisciplinary. And you see over there some of the key characteristics, but indeed, they are very, this is not a very nice slide, but the concept is that ESCI is basically, when a journal is in ESCI, these journals, that journal is basically, it's basically meeting some of the requirements, the green requirements that you see right here in the slides. Whilst the journals that are in the historical index, so in the index that are at the upper level, if you want, also meet the black additional requirements. So said, basically ESCI has become a sort of, first layer. Anytime that a new journal now is submitted for evaluation to our platform, the characteristics of the journal are checked against the ESCI criteria. So any journal, a new journal, if you have a new journal right here of the University Press of Slovenia and so on, the characteristic of the journal is checked against the criteria, the green criteria of ESCI. And obviously it could happen that the journal would go to ESCI, would start to be indexed or not. If the journal is started to be indexed, then later on will be checked against the criteria to be in the upper level, if you want. Okay, so in the historically 3 indexes. More or less, it could be represented like this. Let's say that a journal has been selected for ESCI in the 2015. We started to index ESCI in 2015. After 2 years, so in 2017, the journal could be evaluated to be in the upper level. Why after 2 years? Obviously, because any journal that wants to be in the Web of Science core collection typically want to have an impact factor. I haven't yet told you key characteristics for ESCI. The journals that are in ESCI do not have an impact factor because we want to keep the differentiation between the journals. So these journals are needed to be indexed and included in our platform because people want to have more papers, but we cannot grant them the same level of all the other journals. So we do not grant them the impact factor, okay? So a journal is in ESCI, is without impact factor, but maybe after 2 years could be evaluated to be in the historical indexes and having impact factor. Why after 2 years? Because obviously we could check even after 1 year, but in any case you need 3 years to calculate an impact factor, okay? So it's a good trade-off if you think deeply. A publisher wants to be indexed in Web of Science core collections, wants to be more visible. A researcher starts to be more visible if you publish it in these journals because it is in a Web of Science core collection. And eventually, if the journals start to be cited, start to be very discoverable and visible, could apply to be at the upper level. It could have also an impact factor. And it happened, by the way, last year. That was the full year, the first full year in which journal could move because we started in 2015. We had 201 titles that basically go up, go in the upper level of the historical index, WOS-3 or WOS Classic, whatever you want to call it, and 21 that, by the way, done the opposite way, so were downgraded. Okay. Overall, you see that we have a total of basically 190 journals, brand new, in 2017 in the Web of Science core collection. If you think deeply, it's a very low acceptance rate. Only 190 journals became available to be in the core collection historical indexes. It's something like less than 10% of acceptance rate respect to the journals that tend to be submitted to this. Whilst the acceptance rate of ESCI, obviously, is much higher, because in basically a few years, we reached, you have seen in the slides before, more than 7,000 journals in ESCI, okay? Because the acceptance rates, it's quite similar to that one of other databases, so it's more than 50%. If you need to check if a journal is in ESCI or not, you can easily check on Web of Science core collection, because on Web of Science core collection, you know that when a journal is in the historical indexes, basically, and is not in Arts and Humanities, it's clickable. There is an hyperlink that brings you to the impact factor, to the JCR. Once that link is not available, it means that the journal is on ESCI, so it's not in the historical indexes. But anyway, if you want to be sure, just click on this link, put the name of the journal, and you will see and where it has been, if it has been indexed. Some statistics with respect to ESCI, because are quite important. Well, ESCI, it's quite different from the standard indexes. First of all, in terms of geographical coverage, for instance. Because you see that the first countries, it's UK, then Spain, it's England, by the way, not UK. You see also Spain, Italy, and so on. A lot of European countries. And indeed, 49% of the content of ESCI is European. It is not obviously the same proportion of historical indexes where the North America is the major bench, is the major area of journals. And the other key characteristics is that you see the majority of journals in ESCI are coming from social science areas. The top area is educational, but you have also law, history, religion, economics, something that is not so typical in the historical indexes of Web of Science, that it's not a secret, are very much focused more on the STAM area, right? Whilst ESCI is mainly dealing with social science, both social science and arts humanities is more than half of ESCI, okay? Why this? It's also as a technical reason, because basically in the criteria that I've just showed for a moment before, there were some criteria that were tough to be met by social science journals, like the frequency of publication, for instance. Many journals cannot, ensure about a frequency of publication in this area, respect to the science area. And they were basically excluded from the core collection. But given the fact that we have relaxed this criteria, we have said, no, this criteria is not anymore valid to be in ESCI. It's still valid to be in the main indexes, but it's not anymore valid to be in ESCI. A lot of journals were available to be indexed right here, okay? So this is the percentage of. And ESCI has also another key characteristics. It's very much focused on open access. I don't know if you are very much interested, but that was the situation of open access on our platform up to a few months ago. I would say end of 2017. You probably know that up to end of last year, you were able always to flag on Web of Science core collection the open access flag that was bottom to the left, right? That flag was a flag dealing with the, if you want, open access at journal level, because we were collecting the journals that were in the directory open access journals, so the journals that were fully open for the reader, basically, and any article, obviously, of such a journals was open by definition, if you want. And so up to the end of last year, we were able to flag on Web of Science core collection 2.2 million of records that were gold in such a sense, okay? But, as I said, one of the key news, one of the key happenings along this year of Clarivate was the partnership with Impact Story. And Impact Story, and through this application and paywall, we are now able to go at the article level of open access. So not looking only to gold open access journals, but even looking to articles that might be open in a journal that is not open at all. So it's the case of hybrid journals, journals that can accept that you publish it if you pay the article processing charge, or if someone is paying the article processing charge. And even we are now able to find out journals that make available their papers after the embargo period. You know, that it's also quite typical that some journals, after 12 months, 18 months, whatever, made available their papers. All of this is done through this partnership, and now the situation is like this. We have more than 10 million, oh, no, we are almost 10 million, we are not reached 10 million, but we are very close, 10 million of open access papers on Web of Science core collections. And you see the distinction that I was telling you before. Basically, there are, and we will go through, but why I was showing the open access stuff right here, because another key characteristic of ESCI, I was dealing with key characteristic of ESCI, is the fact that ESCI, because there are emerging journals, there are younger journals, obviously all the top journals are in the historical index if you want. In the emerging journals area, in the area of social science that is quite strange, you see that the percentage of open access papers, it's almost the double of the percentage that you have in the historical index. Could also be said that historical publishers are a bit more reluctant, obviously, to be open respect to the new emerging journals and publishers. But these are the percentage along the last year. Obviously, doesn't make so sense to have or to check the open access before 2000 and, well, I choose 2004 because this was a slide I did for Italy and it was the starting point of open access in Italy, but 2003 probably is the declaration of Berlin Declaration. So, I mean, we are close to the very incipit of the open access stuff. And well, we started to index ESCI at the end of 2015, as I said, and ESCI has been a very good success all over the world because people, researchers were asking to that. So for all these reasons that I'm just collecting right here, by the way, 49% of journals in ESCI are not covered by a competitor that you might easily imagine. And 36, by the way, it's always 49, 36. So I check it twice. It's like this, but these are the key characteristics of the ESCI. And these were the reason why, after that we decided to start to index ESCI in 2015, we have decided to also enlarge, where it's possible, obviously, the ESCI to 10 years before. So we have had it for many of these journals, not all, because not all the journals were launched in 2005, for instance, or where not journals had available the digital versions of their papers on those years before, but we have added 10 years of Backfiles, okay? And you see right here that 62% of ESCI nowadays in our platform is Backfiles. It's before the 2014, okay? some characteristics. I will leave to you the presentation later on, just to, it's not so important. But I would like now focus on what does it mean ESCI, so this new index for Slovenia. And this is the percentage of Slovenian papers respect to the WOS-CC, so the historical index, for what concerns ESCI. You see that year by year is growing the importance of ESCI respect, you know, the WOS-CC. So right now, in the last full year, we have 12% of the Slovenian content that is on ESCI. And overall, 54% of ESCI content is Backfiles. So it's before the 2014. But I'm not just playing the number for, you know, because I like just to do analysis on Web of Science core collection. I would like then to show you which are the, you know, the results of all this. Yeah, for instance, by category, if you look at the Backfiles, I focused on Backfiles, for instance, you see that these are the main categories in which fall the major of this, the majority of these papers. So the biggest one is social science, as I said, very much social science. But you see other, even a scientific category like computer science or sports science. I don't know if it's scientific, probably yes. Dermatology for sure. And there are also some good paper in the Backfiles, for instance. All these one that I just surfed on the Web of Science, I will go through online shortly just to show something, are all in the top 10, for instance, in several different areas, like even mathematics and so on. But what I really care to show you is who could benefit of this ESCI. So what happens to, you know, the stakeholders, if you want. So let's do, for instance, this case. This case, it's we can also do it online. Just it's easy, but just to you know, just to interrupt the slides flow and just to go online. Let's try to do exactly this example. Where it was like this, and I probably haven't Arab near 3 revolution. I have to write everything. So topic, you know that when you search for topic Arab, you searching for basically 4 fields, right? Near 3 is a nice proximity operator. That means that you are checking for words that are close, at least three words of difference between Arab and the other words that someone put in here. So revolution, uprising, and spring. So it's a quite hot topic. Let's say we know that there is an issue: revolution or uprising or spring. So uprising, I haven't written it. So when you search for this, you are searching for basically all the occurrences in all the Web of Science databases in which Arab, it's closer 3 words, let's say, to the other words, or revolution, or uprising, or spring, where? In the title, in the abstract, in the keyword, or in the keyword plus. This is how the topic search is mapped in Web of Science core collection. I do search. By the way, I'm accessing right now a QA system, so the numbers could be similar, but not exactly the same. You see right here that we have, well, one more. By the way, I don't know if you know, but since last year, we started to index Web of Science core collection every day. So it was weekly before last year, is now daily. And if you look at the ESCI, if you want always to check where are the papers on ESCI, you go down, bottom left, view all options. You have the breakdown for all the index of Web of Science. Obviously, another idea could have been just select at the very beginning the index that you want. But indeed, you see that it's even easier just to take advantage of this filter that we have just added here. So if you want to know which are the papers that are in emerging source citation index respect to your search, just look like this. Or vice versa, if you want to know which are the papers that haven't an impact factor, you can obviously go on more options, and according what are your needs, you could also exclude, obviously emerging. If you exclude, you have all the papers that are in the historical index. But if you include, if you refine, you have all the papers that are in ESCI. So 889, I don't know if the slides was updated. Yes, was updated. So 889, it's 35% of the paper are in ESCI. And then again, so I can show you the analyze. You can filter for all these, items to the left, but you can also take advantage of the new analyze results. Okay, I'll show you something a bit posh. This is the new analyze, how it looks like in Web of Science. So you can select what you are analyzing. So if you want to select the publication years, just click on publication years. You have this graph, the bar graph, or you have also the tree map, so the blocks like before. You can select the year that you want, or you can exclude as well the year that you want. Just exclude or select exactly as you do by filtering. So if I want to exclude, by the way, this is ordered by record count. You can also order by selected field. It means by alphabetically if you want. If I want to exclude, the year that are the current year of Backfiles, I just can go like this and exclude. And I have all the Backfiles of ESCI. So 476 is exactly the results that I was showing right here. So you see that for a topic that is quite an odd topic, there is a percentage of paper, 19% of papers that are in ESCI Backfiles. This is a quite social science topic, obviously, but the percentage is very good, and the percentage of ESCI as well is very good. So 1/3 of the papers are in ESCI, basically. But this is true for a general topic. This is also true for people. And I choose here, like, this is a doctor in immunology, if I'm not wrong, and I will be using it later on. You see that including or not including ESCI Backfiles, I mean only ESCI Backfiles for a doctor, this doctor, got, more publication, or you can see the arrow vice versa. I haven't properly checked it. Let me check, because I want to tell also something with respect to this. Because obviously we don't have the profile, as you know. We don't believe in the profiles of the authors, basically. So for searching an author, we go author and we go Poliak. If I'm sorry, Poliak was the name, right? Yes. I search for Poliak, and differently for what you get from other databases, you don't get profiles, right? You don't get a list of people that are called Poliak Milan, Poliak Marco, and what else, other Monica or other Poliak. You got papers, and you are supposed to surf these papers to find out which are your papers. And after that you have found out your papers, maybe you can associate them to Research ID or to ORCID. Just flag once for life if you want. And at that time, you can search again your paper through the author identifiers. That should be the rule, that should be the message. Why we haven't put the profile right here? We haven't put the profile because probably this Poliak hem, it's quite easy to be, found out which are the papers of Poliak, right? But maybe if I try with one Y, a Chinese name, or if I try with a Spanish name, Sanchez Gonzalo, whatever you want, you will see that it's something completely different. Because the automatic algorithm, if you search for one Y, would find out one of the 48,000 of one Y that there are in the world. We are pushed to think always that, profiles are good, because even in my case, if I search for Carloni M, okay, my profile is quite good over there. But there are 1 billion of Chinese for which the profile are not good. There are tons of Spanish people for which the profile are not good. And if they are not good, obviously, and this is an overall solutions, we cannot just put over there some profiles that are not good. Test it, test in all the database that you want, and see what happens if you search for some strange name. But why I'm telling you this? Because indeed, since times, we have the profiles. Let me go back, because not so many people are using it, but indeed, we give you, in any case, the suggestion. So we have algorithm for coupling, or for discovering who are the authors that could have authored some papers. Might be because we are not 100% sure. So top, left, always, you can search for what we were used to call distinct author sets. Now we call what we call the article grouped with no further explanation. If you flip for Poliak M, you see that we have the profiles. So we could have put just this on top on the first page, and you see that it would have been probably very similar to another experience that you are experiencing with another database, right? So Poliak Mario, 246, then Poliak Milan, Poliak Mirko. You see that, by the way, when there is a researcher ID or an ORCID ID, obviously the algorithm is also taking in consideration this. Obviously, if you have put the researcher ID on ORCID, it's also simpler to group the authors. So these are the 246 papers on Poliak M. I haven't done anything else like this. I'm saying this because probably these are not the only papers of Poliak M, and I will maybe show you later on. I just used it, and I just launched the new citation report, just to show you that we also have regenerated the citation report that is now appears like this. By the way, I see that the H-index, it's changed. This maybe could be done. No, it's the same. I was thinking that that has changed, but it's exactly what I did, without any other further clarification, without any further deep analysis. I'm sure, and by the way, after that, I will spend some time that I could find out other papers of Poliak M, okay? But anyway, the concept is that, including ESCI, obviously, the numbers start to be quite different. Just some cases. In this case, you see the H-index doesn't change so much, but you know the number of citation is definitely different. This is a philosopher, by the way. I haven't put so many philosophers and so on. And this is another one. It's quite interesting. And by the way, this allows me to show you what I was saying before, that you can also recognize the papers just looking at the papers that are belonging to ESCI. So if I just put here Podnar, right? That should be, because I did it yesterday or the day before yesterday. So it's still no, come on, sorry, Podnar, okay. Clement, if I'm not wrong. Sorry, Podnar, come on, Podnar, okay. And once again, I found out here, Podnar Clement, few paper. I click on Podnar K, and I have how many grouped? So Clement, it's 23. Then there is this one that probably is not him because it's completely different. And then there is this one that it's him for sure, but you see the paper is 2018, and probably the algorithm still hasn't run. Okay, so next time that the algorithm of disambiguation will run, probably that record will be coupled. But you can also obviously couple it as well, or merge this record just doing this and clicking on view records. Come on. And if I launch now the citation report, here you can see a lot of ESCI Backfiles papers. And what I was saying before, that you can recognize a journal where is in the historical indexes, because you see that there is the hyperlink. You can click on this and have all the journal metrics data. Whilst, like corporate communications, you see that you cannot click. This is on ESCI. So this paper very much cited because it's cited 85 times. These other papers as well, always on corporate communications. So you see that here, journal brand management as well. There are a lot of journals that are in ESCI and then make the profile of these people very much more different for what it was before. So, so people take advantage of Backfiles for sure. And again, there are other slides that are just drafted in these days. So May 2018, just to see how it looks like, for instance, you know, which is the percentage of papers for University of Maribor, so for university nearby here, in several different areas, which is the percentage, just to just to have fun. And this is the overall, importance of the ESCI Backfiles respect to the ESCI, overall index in all the main institutions right here in Slovenia. And you see that more or less we are around more than 50% of the ESCI content is Backfiles. And by the way, these are the 19 journals that we have indexed on ESCI. So I don't know if you can recognize, there are a lot of journals coming from the University Press of Ljubljana. I think that 7 out of 19 are from Ljubljana Press. 8 out of 19 have the Backfiles, yes, and some of them, you see, the no are not indexed anywhere else in the other database. But now I would like to talk about the characteristic of ESCI, because ESCI is not only important because we have added journals. As I said before, we could have added journals everywhere, with any characteristics. But we decided to put ESCI as an index of core collection. It means a lot. It means that we have some key characteristics. The key characteristics are more or less this one: cover to cover, open access, funding information, and the affiliation. I would like to deal a bit with respect to these key characteristics of the core collection. I'm sorry here to mention again, another solution, let's say, but it's important to understand what does it mean cover to cover. This is University of Ljubljana, all the paper in 2005, 2017, so the last 12 years and so on. And these are the number of records in 2 databases. And obviously the 2 databases are the 2 main databases, okay? So in this case, but please believe me, I haven't just put this, because we are just slightly better than Scopus, you can check. But yes, obviously I would have chosen this one, but could be also vice versa. It doesn't change what I'm saying right now. It could be also that Scopus are 33,700 and we have 33,200. What is changing is that the two databases are completely different because, as I said before, we have 440,000 journals, and Scopus, if you look at the website right now, has 23,700 thousand journals. Okay. And by the way, this is an updated number. I just have the look at the website, so I believe that is correct. But what is important to know is the difference is something like 17%. So cover to cover means that even if a database is indexing 17% more journals, I would expect to have 17 more or less % of more papers. Like you also have experienced it several times, you have H index higher. You have more papers in Scopus than in Web of Science. It's normal because there are more journals, okay? But what is not normal is that with more journals, you have more or less, and you can check. This is University of Ljubljana, the biggest university in Slovenia. You can check every year, and you see that we are better in most of the years. Sometimes it's better Scopus as well. But more or less, we are there. So it could also be the overall number better for Scopus. But the problem is that if these numbers are true, our number is true for sure, it's a number that is on the website, something happens that is wrong, obviously. And what we call cover to cover, we do not neglect any papers that is in that journal, okay? In all the journals that we collect, we have no holes, basically, if you want to see in another way. And look also another characteristics. Apart the last year, in which the green one, we are the green one, there is a decrease, right? And this is due probably to the fact that we have conference proceedings that are very lazy in a way. I would say we do not index so fast the conference proceedings, but at the end of the year, you will for sure see that there will be an increase. But you see, in all the years, there is an increase, right? In all the years for the green line. Well, for the purple line, you have some decrease. And this is almost unbelievable, okay? It's unbelievable unless you do not admit that there are some issues. Why it's unbelievable? Because in all databases, we are growing year by year the number of journals. We do not expect to have 1 year that is below the previous year. Never. For any year, unless there is not some issues, you know, in some countries maybe there have been some issues and so on and so forth, but not for sure in Ljubljana in the 2012, 13, 14, 15. There are no possibility that in 1 year you have less paper than the other years, because the number of journals is continuously growing in all the databases. Okay, try to think to this stuff when you look at the numbers. And again, but here it's very much difficult to. This is another stuff, but it would be a relata refero. In Latin we say relata refero, saying that it's not me, but it's a report that it's very interesting because it's also show you another stuff. Cover to cover also means we cover all authors and all affiliations. This has been very tricky because historically maybe we do not have the link. That is true before the 2008. So. Knowing which is the 5th author, maybe in a paper, if it's associated to the 4th affiliation or the 6th. So you don't have the link, but you have all the authors and all the affiliations. Okay, this is key important. And you see right here, this is an independent report run by NSF, Science Metrics, that is a Canadian consultancy company for NSF, the National Science Foundation in US. Because they were keen to understand which were the difference between the two databases, okay? And this report never, retracted, never discussed it anywhere, is showing exactly number of authors and the number of affiliation in both databases in the recent years, let's say. It has been published, you see, in the 2016, so it's analyzing. And you see what happens in terms of applications in affiliation over there. Again, it's not only important the numbers, okay, the numbers, but it's important also how we index stuff. You see right here that in the other cases you have some, peak and valleys, the same peak and valley that you have seen in, University of Ljubljana. And the concept is always the same. Could not happen, basically, because this is also an historical trend. You know that papers are growing the number of authors. Papers are becoming more and more collaborative. So if 20 years ago we have an average number of people publishing a paper, co-authoring a paper of 3. Now we have that are 5 people co-authoring a paper. It's a growing trend, okay? I will skip this because otherwise, but another key point, last key point about our indexing. Because a key part of our success is the impact factor, okay, right? The impact factor is a copyright, it's there since 40 years, and we keep the value of the impact factor monitoring, obviously, the behavior of the journals. And sometimes, quite often, one of the questions that I'm asked any time that I start to do a presentation is, I'm sure that I can, play with the impact factor. I'm a publisher, I can try to have a better impact factor. Why? Because, because you basically use as a formula the number of citations on the top, on the numerator, and then the citable items on the denominator of the impact factor. And citable items, are article and reviews. Only article and reviews. So a smart publisher thinks, look, I have this letter, I have this editorial, I call it letter, I call it editorial. This editorial is 100 pages long with 100 cited reference. I call it editorial. It will not appear in the denominator of the impact factor. It will count for the citation. Perfect. Growing the numerator and decreasing the denominator, it's the way to get a higher ratio, so a higher impact factor. But this does not work with us because even in this case, differently from other databases, other commercial databases, we do not accept the document type of the publisher. So this is an example just for you. When you will have the slide, check it. This is a letter for Nature, a big publisher, right? Nature Publishing Group or Springer Nature. However, it's lost my. If you look at these articles, you will see. You click on this, you will see that this is an article. This is a letter, right? Oh, let's do it. So just to have fun for a moment. if it works, otherwise, no. I basically crashed everything, or not. It's working something? No. Just a moment, because I can also do in this rough way. I know, Miguel, that is not very posh. You prefer some other ways, but control, I know I'm vintage. I like vintage. By the way, it's not working as well. Well, when you have time, if you look, you will see that is a letter, right? So Nature Publishing is saying, oh, this is a letter. Then you go see this letter. It's a letter with an abstract, and you see, for instance, that this letter are, you know, for being a letter, this letter have too many references for us, right? Cannot be a letter. You have written an article, basically, with all these references, you see. And I don't know if that's been cited or not, but it's very recent. But in Web of Science Core Collection, if you do Control-C, yeah, thanks. And if you go, obviously, searching for the title, maybe, here we are, title. It got one citation, it's very recent, so, and it will be cited for sure, but you see that the document type is not letter, and we have the document type letter, okay? So keep in mind when someone is telling you, look, you know, I know that with Clarivate you can play with the impact factor and so on. It's not so simple. Obviously there are errors. There is the possibility that we are in error. This is always possible, for sure. But we do not accept the document types of the publisher, okay? So, said this is the importance of Web of Science Core Collection, because Web of Science Core Collection is very much controlled. This is the reason why it's used for evaluation, because apart errors that are always possible, there are some stuff that run behind, very behind, but are important for the consistency of the database. And another things are the funding data, okay? This is quite typical. You know probably that since 2008, we have started to index the so-called funding acknowledgements. So the acknowledgements, the thanks, if you want, that authors were supposed to, are supposed, and sometimes are pushed to put, it's more than a moral suasion, I would say, typically at the bottom of the paper to thank some funding agencies that has funded that research, or to thank someone else, okay? It's not only monetary or something like this. So you have, for instance, your Slovenian research agency, and even right here, you can easily look for this. Just allow me to do this one. It's just some variances of the name of your agency, okay? Like for the organization, and we will go through, there is not a policy, or at least you haven't yet, you know, established a policy, or at least the people are not exactly looking at these policies. By the way, if you go for some grants, European Union or Wellcome Trust or some very big funding agency, you are supposed exactly to write a statement, okay? They tell you as you write a statement, as you write the name of the company or the agency or so on and so forth. But in this case, you can search for the funding agencies for all this name. I would put all this name right here in the OR, like you do for an address for, you know, an organization. If you don't know that there is the organization enhanced, then I will talk you shortly with respect to this. Or otherwise, it's even more easily to use the advanced search, knowing that funding test is FO. Sorry, but by the way, it's here. You see, funding agency is FO, and then put your variances, and you have all the papers that in Web of Science Core Collection have as a funding agency, the Slovenian research agencies. So all these papers have in common, if you click on some of these, let's have a look. So this is an atlas, come on, these are something like 3,000 authors, not to be taken. These biosystems should be easier. if you go bottom, you see that the authors of this paper have acknowledged the support from Slovenian agency with the grant number ZI to blah, 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 and also other, funding agencies. This is probably a collaborative project with Hungary and Slovenia, okay? And you can also search, by the way, for grant number. If you have the grant number or any grants and so on and so forth, you can search for it. Or you can search for all the different names in which someone has called your agency or whatever other agency. If you want also to suggest to the researcher, your researchers, which are, the papers, the organization that are mostly funded by another agency that you might like, not only in Slovenia. And indeed, I know that we have drafted a report, so I haven't lost time in looking into it because, this was the concept behind this. By the way, this is, an ESCI backfile paper. So ESCI, like all the other indexes in Web of Science core collection, not like all the others because Arts Humanities hasn't the funding and knowledge, but it's quite typical. Funding Arts Humanities is not exactly the best example for this. So in ESCI, you have the funding and knowledge as well, and also in the ESCI backfiles, because the ESCI is part of the core collection. So we also index this important feature. And I was referring to this report. I don't know if I can disclose it because I don't know so much, but I think that has been, this is a report that I saw, it's public, okay, that we did for this agency and for the results of this agency. So having the funding acknowledgement, you can analyze, the number of records that agency has funded, which university have been funded, or in which journals publish the people that have been mostly funded. So you have all the analysis that you want, respect, to the policy, if you want, of that agency. And this is coming to be even more and more important everywhere because now it's almost mandatory, but several funding agencies, at least in Italy, for instance, for sure, funding agencies now oblige authors to recognize the value because they want to analyze the impact of the papers that I have funded after that, ex post, as they say. Another key point is this. I don't know if some of you is using the cited reference search, because another key point of the Web of Science core collection is the fact, as I said at the beginning, that the idea of Eugene Garfield was collecting all the cited reference for any papers. So it means that when we have started to index the source index, the social science, the science, or ESCI, have also collected all the cited reference of these sources. And indeed, we have created another index. This is why we are a true citational index. This index is the cited reference index, if you want. So you have embedded something that is not clear, but you have embedded another database. So you can search also vice versa. And why I'm saying this? Because this is extremely important. So this is another characteristics. Because if you go and search, that paper, if I do search, that paper was, how I found out it. Let's find out if I remember. I searched for Slovenian papers. So one way to search for Slovenian paper is always, I like the advanced search. I don't know if you have understood, but I like a lot. The advanced search is just searching for CU, where it is. Yeah, the country, region, like here, and put Slovenia, okay? Search, you have the overall number of Slovenian papers in core collection, in this case. So 84,000, okay? If you go right here, as I did before, for finding that paper, I was looking at the ESCI backfiles because I was supposed to talk about ESCI backfiles. So I selected the ESCI that are, 3,000 paper are here, refine it. And then I have excluded the recent years, just to look at the backfiles. Yeah, exclude. You can easily do whatever you want, filtering, excluding, refining. And time cited, I should have, no, it's not here. That paper, oh yes, it's, I see it just on, I was not, it's just on the top. Yeah, sure. I took this because it was very much cited. You see, it's something related to the policy something. The category could be, I don't know if management or business. Yeah, business. And if you take this title, and let's go to the cited reference search. Click on cited reference search. You can search, for instance, for the cited title. So click on the cited title and put this title. What I'm looking now, I'm looking for all the papers that in the Web of Science core collection, but I can search also for all databases or for whatever databases right here, are citing this paper, okay? And I saw already that this paper has been cited 180 times. So I expect here just to get 180 citing articles, okay? Because it's this. By the way, you can put something that is also not in Web of Science core collection, because when you cite something, obviously, it's not to be said that you cite something that is in Web of Science core collection. And this could be an important suggestion, for instance, for editors of new journals that you might have here in the universities, because quite often they come back to me and say, look, my journal is very much, it's a good journal. We started 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and the journal, it's very much cited. It's true. You can go on the cited reference search, put in cited work, the name of the journal, and you will see all the citation that the journal has accrued in Web of Science core collection. So you can really evaluate. But what I would like to show you, and when you are in Web of Science core collection, you have these characteristics, for instance. That paper, you see right here that that paper has been identified. In fact, there is also the hyperlink that brings you, obviously, in Web of Science core collection, has been published on these journals in 2006, volume C13, issue 4, page, and also DOI. And you can get access to all the 180 citing articles. You see how it's nice. You know, you can go back and forth anytime. You don't have any break, any walls, something, you know. It's all the database is built right here. But what I would like to show you, and that could be important for researchers, it is in the 3 top lines. You probably have exactly a citation of the same article, because same author, same journal, same title, and then you have same year, in this case wrong volume, what a pity, in this case wrong page, in this case no page. So in all this case, given the fact that the system is stupid, the algorithm is checking for, you know, all the pieces one by one, these 2, 1, and 2, so 5 other citations have been not grouped to the 180 citations, okay? So are, you know, orphan citations, so you can call whatever you want, or whatever you want, but in any case are citations that the system hasn't recognized to be part, you know, of that. And why I'm telling this? Because this could be extremely important for researchers and so on. So if you have some doubts, if you know that maybe someone could have cited you and you cannot find out the citation and so on, you can also put your name, cited author, and just to see all the citation that you have got, or who has the name similar to you has got on Web of Science core collection. Or you put the name, as I did, you put the name, the title of the article that you have published, and you could see if all the citations have been correctly accrued to year. Because this paper right here, the author right here were wrong, because they haven't put what they did right here, they haven't put the right page. And obviously, when the system is checking if this citation is exactly the citation to this same stuff, it's checking it piece by piece, and it's a stupid algorithm that would say, look, the page is not the same, so for me it's not the same. We know that it's the same because we have also the other, you know, key points, but in general, we cannot ask to a machine to do, you know, something that it properly has. If you want to know how to solve this, just go on the home page of Web of Science, and like in this case, that is quite straightforward, you can request a change of the data. So just customer feedback and support request a data change. You say, look, this is clearly, an error somewhere. We could have done this error. The publisher could have done. The author could have done. It's not so important, but it's an error on the system. It's an error. In any case, it's something wrong, and you can correct in this way. So, event-cited reference is extremely important. It's something that you can take advantage. Something brand new is also the associated data. I don't know if you have the chance to see, but in Web of Science core collection, sometimes now we have built or designed the link between the Web of Science core collection that I was showing and the data citation index that I told at the very beginning of these presentations, the database of data sets. In some cases, when this link is available, you have, and having the possibility to have the citation connection, you have the associated data. So when a data set is referring, when a paper is referring to a data set, by the way, we have also started to index what are called the data paper as a document type. Now I will show you in a moment the document type eventually. But you see that for some papers like this one, you have the possibility to link directly to the data sets, to the data that the researcher has used or in any case has consulted as seen for his or her research. So you have this associated data, it just brings you on the bottom. And here you have the link to the data citation index. So if you're accessing data citation connection, you will be able to click on this link. And on this link, you have the record of data citation index that looks like the record of Web of Science, with the only difference that this is a data set. It's not a paper, it's not a book or a conference proceeding, it's a data set that is linking you to the site, to the repository where these data are stored. Okay, I don't know what could be this stuff, honestly speaking, but these are the data that has been used for that paper. So this is also a brand new characteristic of Web of Science core collection. I was saying about the document type, something that maybe could be helpful as well. Let's have a look at the Slovenian paper. If you go and search for document types right here, you see that you have the standard document types that you imagine to have. So article, proceedings, review, book chapters. But if you click on more option and values, you will find out that probably here, it's much more complex, the situation. And for instance, you have correction, okay? And correction are corrections, but you have also, since one year, retracted publication. That could be extremely important, especially if you are doing some evaluations. We are the first one to index the retracted publication. So you can exactly, because before last year, the retracted publication were corrections in Scopus erratum, but you basically don't know unless you don't go and look at the paper if that paper has been retracted. Retracted is much more obviously than corrected, no? So if you go and filter for retracted publication, you have this article that has been flagged like retracted article. So not anymore good for any reasons, obviously, you don't know. But you see that some could be also cited and so on and so forth. So keep in mind when you do some evaluation that maybe now you are able to flag which are the retracted publication, and I haven't seen retraction, but retraction is another document type, is the notice respect to the fact that the paper will be retracted. Typically you have two document types. The journal issue the notice, the retraction, that a paper will be retracted, and then the paper retracted is flagged that it's retracted. But there is also another good news probably for you, because we are testing the early access, meaning what we call early access. You see right here, for some publishers are already available. I wouldn't call them article in press. we could call whatever you want, but are basically paper that have been accepted for publication but not yet published. So they are in the final form because have been reviewed, corrected by the reviewers, so on and so forth. And you see that this is an article, early access, has been flagged also with, with this document type. And you don't have the typical metadata because you don't have the volume, the issue, the pages, because it hasn't been published. It has been accepted but not published. This is still on test, on trial for what concerns us. So we have signed an agreement with some publisher. We are testing how it works because obviously there are some issues. You see that if you go in another database, there are articles in press of 2012 that doesn't make so sense, or 2013, because it's then difficult to reconnect, the early access article to the final article, and maybe also collecting all the citations, So there are some issues in the reconjunction of everything, if you want. Okay, so let's go after. Sorry, I don't know what happens. Okay, let's go. Open access, because, in ESCI, obviously, there are, as I said, several open access, and I just had fun to look for some statistics. These are the statistics in the 2004-2018, so the last 15 years. And I checked Slovenia against the countries that in Europe have more than 100 papers. So the top papers, I think that there are 12 or something. So the countries that have a larger production of papers in the last 15 years in Europe. And you see that the overall weight of open access, it's on average 24.89 in Europe, and Slovenia, it's almost aligned. The top countries in Europe in Netherlands, that we standing Elsevier, it's quite funny. And you see the TR more or less online. This is what I was saying before, respect to the possibility also to have a breakdown of your open access, perspective, because your 23 dot something open access is indeed mostly gold, what we call gold, where 11% is properly gold. So what is open articles in open access journals. So journals that, as you see in the brackets, are in the directory open access journals, so fully available for the reader, whilst all the other are hybrid. Okay. So this is more or less the breakdown of your open access, and I'm showing this, if I remember well, and these are, by the way, the categories for you, for your papers, Slovenian papers, in which the percentage of open access articles is much bigger, okay? So multidisciplinary, it's quite typical, but then you see medicine, microbiology, astronomy, and we are, by the way, with these top categories, close to 50%. And I would suggest you to properly look into this. For instance, microbiology, it means the half of the content of microbiology is basically free for Slovenia. I think it's quite general. It's freely available. So it could make sense have a look at your subscription policy just to see if in this area maybe you are in any case subscribing a lot of journals, a lot of expensive journals, I don't know. But it's something that is worthy to be analyzed, and several institutions are analyzing how to cope with this, just exploit the open access opportunities to maybe reduce the expense budget for what concerns publishers. Okay, but there are also, sometimes I need to have fun and to do some rankings, because otherwise I'm not happy. These are the institutions for which there is the highest percentage of open access papers in Slovenia. So the first one is the National Institute of Oncology, I guess. Second, Ljubljana, and so on, and all the others. By the way, something that I haven't told you before, but what you have seen for the funding agencies is also true for the organization, obviously. How we have mapped, how can I say, that University of Ljubljana is over there with 25% of open access. So what is University of Ljubljana for us? Keep in mind that even in this case, we are very different from, from other databases, because we have always the field address, right? So address is the address in a paper, and you can always search for, your institutional name. So let's assume University of Ljubljana, you can search for University of Ljubljana right here. But obviously, you will get all the papers that have exactly University of Ljubljana in the address. Then you can, improve your search strategy and put in there, like Ljubljana University, or the Slovenian name. I don't know if it's similar or not. So you have several other, opportunity to put over there. You can create your query. You can also save your query and use ones that you need. Or you can also rely on us, because we have created since time this field that is called organization enhanced. For any organization, that is the reasons why you see the organizations that are not indeed mapped in the database. We have created something like this. So if I put here Ljubljana, for instance, too many J or not, it's always an issue. You have Ethiopia, I don't know why, for it to be analyzed, but you have University of Ljubljana right here. And if you click on details, you have exactly the mapping or all the names that we have associated to University of Ljubljana. Exactly what I was suggesting to do in the address field is what is done in this field, organization analysis. For all the organization, mostly all the organization, the majority of the organization in the world, for sure all the biggest universities and so on and so forth, we have mapped all of them. And we are continuously improving and trying to improve this. So my suggestion, if you want to, I don't know which is your association, affiliation, and so on, but you always have a look at how we have mapped your organization. If you find out some papers that are not correctly associated to you, just come back to me, to Marco, to whatever you want, and we can improve always that mapping. And this mapping also it's of key importance, because try to think, for instance, just to, even in this case, give you the idea of the importance of, the mix between a human experience and algorithm respect to having an algorithm, okay? Because there are some organizations, just to mention the CNRS in France, for instance, the major national center is in France, but the same in Italy, the same in Spain. These organizations have, bottom them, I mean, they own something like more than 100 other institutions. And there is no way that an automatic algorithm could know that ISMAR, this is just an acronym in Italy, belongs to CNR, that is a completely different acronym with a completely different city in Italy, unless some human being would not tell the systems that these two variances are variances for the same organization, okay? That is the idea behind. So in this case, just add the name of your organization, and so the solution is, if you use this conventional statement right here, University of Ljubljana, you can search in this field and you will find out all the papers of University of Ljubljana, meaning that you will be doing all the variances that have been mapped as University of Ljubljana. That is how it works, okay? Just to explain how you can be sure about these numbers without being in trouble, more or less. Open access papers are also very much impactful, okay? Because they are more discoverable, probably. But in any case, statistically speaking, it's true everywhere in the world, and I checked it's true also in Slovenia. Open access paper gets more citation than normal paper, statistically speaking, obviously, and gets a higher impact. So I look at the highly cited papers, top left. Highly cited papers are another copyright by Clarivate, are papers that are in the top 1% in their ESCI category. So you see that Slovenia in general, looking at all the papers, all the 8,000 papers probably that we have seen before, it's just above the average, the world average. The world average would be 1, because I told you that the highly cited papers are top 1. So the average would be 1. So you are, in general, considering all the papers, 1.02. But if you look only to the open access papers, the percentage of highly cited papers in the open access basket, it's 1.88. So they got much more citations. I just choose 3 years, 2014, 2016, but you can choose whatever you want, and you will see something similar. Same for the hot papers. You see almost the double of the numbers. Highly cited paper, by the way, will be released not, I think, shortly, because I already saw on the website that there is the Highly Cited Researcher 2018 link. So I guess that they will be shortly available. But just for your information, because we are in Maribor, so tomorrow I will throw away this slide when I will be in Ljubljana. Last year, so this year, Highly Cited Researcher in 2017, there were 3 University of Maribor researchers. You are laughing, so you know some of them. Yeah? So these 3 researchers from Maribor are highly cited researchers last year. So by the way, the only 3 Slovenian guys. And just for your information, Marko would love to know that there are no Croatian people, no Bosnian people as well. So Slovenian is the only one that's got some recognizing of these 3. By the way, this is the link for the highly cited researchers. And I would like just to show you that even highly cited researchers, these 3 guys, have a lot of papers that are highly cited, that are open access papers, notwithstanding they are probably very good researchers, that they are already visible. But I found out also that, sorry, there is some, this is probably something that you know much better than me, but anyway, some key points respect to the open access, some key statement or key objectives are 80% of funded research published in 2017 from nationally funded research should be openly available, and 100% in 2020 should be openly accessible the year after. I don't know if you have had a look at which is the trend, so just to give you an idea how you are on the path of meeting those challenging purposes and aims and objectives. This is the trend in Slovenia for the last 15 years as well. You are close to in 2016, you have more than 30% of papers that are open access, okay? By the way, it's declining in 2017, and this is also quite typical for open access, because a paper come to be open after a certain period, let's say, first of all, and in the repository where it's posted this information, it's not immediate, let's say, okay? So it's not like publishing a paper and that paper immediately is posted in a repository like open access. Typically, it's a sort of time lag. You can see also in the literature that I have analyzed that you discover that a paper is open a bit later respect to the standard, let's say. That is the reason why always declining the trends. And this is the percentage, slightly different, between the papers, the 12,000 papers that have been funded by ARS, okay? So it's slightly higher. The percentage, it's more than 35, you see, so 5% higher in general, but not so higher probably how it was expected, okay? So this is the current value, but these are basically, by the way, simpler report analysis that you can do just looking at the Web of Science core collection data as I showed you before. Last but not the least was a citation connection. Okay, citation connection. Let's go a bit faster because I think that it's almost the time. Citation connection is what I was showing before. It's the overall platform with all the overall journals, databases of different types, okay? And I would like just to point out your attention on few stuff. Again, this is the screen. This is, if we want to play the number, this is the difference between Web of Science citation connections and, again, Scopus. I just put Scopus because, obviously, it's the only one competitor that we have. If we have 3 or 4, we will be, there will be others, obviously, we will put. You see the difference in terms of Slovenian papers, obviously. More or less, these are the updated data, just put yesterday. And this is the situation between core collection, that is in purple, and the citation connection. So the other papers that you can find out on the other databases, we are dealing only with journals in this case, on top are core collections. The green wave, it's the papers. You can find out, you can just have a look, obviously, as I did for the core collection. You can just do exactly the same because the platform is quite common. So you go in advanced search, and instead of having 84, you do the same. The command is the same. CU equals Slovenia. You have more than 1,000 papers. You see, so 20,000 papers more respect to the 80,000 papers that are in Web of Science core collections. And this is how I drafted this graph, basically. Sorry, I cannot find out where it is. Just exporting then the data year by year, and you put in this graph. And again, this is a comparison for University of Ljubljana because I just added another line. You remember the graph that I shown 1 hour ago, more or less, the green and the purple, you know, with the declining trend of Scopus and so on. I have the light blue one, that is the core collection. So for University of Ljubljana, because you don't have the organization enhanced, that is a key characteristic of core collection, but in any case, you have the address, you have the possibility to look for Ljubljana and so on. And this is the situation for what concern one university, the biggest one in Slovenia. And in 2011, you know, it's what you're accessing right now and what you could be able to access shortly with the light blue area, that is the increase of papers, of Slovenian papers of University of Ljubljana in this case. And Polyachem, it's the same for Polyachem. You remember the guy, that was the reasons I started with this guy. You can also, doing exactly the same search that I did with Polyak, with the difference that you don't have some characteristics as well of core collections. So you can always run it, but you don't have right here the distinct outer set, the groups, right? But I haven't been so smart. If I go and do like this, I would like to show you just how you can easily go and search for authors. So let's go back to the search that I did on Web of Science. You can obviously save all this search, all these queries. You go on Polyak, on Web of Science core collection. What I forgot to do when I was in Web of Science, something that could be very helpful in analyzing authors. Take these records, save these records on the market list. So add to the market list. By your information, the market list, since almost 1 year and a half now, can be also saved. So you can store in the market list up to 50K, 50K, thousands of paper. because they are directly also linked to Insights, so you can move your data set to be analyzed on Insights, this is our analyzer platform, and you can save this data, this set of data. So especially if you are looking for an author, you can take all the papers that you like, that you think are of Poliak, for instance, save, and then go back. Why I'm saying this? Because now if I rerun the search on all databases, I will have a visual support that could be very interesting to have. Just let's go back to this author that, by the way, just looking at the production, is a doctor in infectious disease, virology, or something like that. I don't know if you know him, but it's. But what I was looking for is this flag right here. This flag means that this paper is already in the market list, right? So if I go now and start to search this, and typically when I do this, I'm looking for papers, and maybe I'm looking for the H index of the author. So it's a good suggestion would be probably order by time cited, because I start to look at all the best papers that could be mine or not, that could be of Poliak or not. So you see immediately you can spot that there is probably this one, that giving the argument virus, virology, and something like that, it's probably him. So you can go and add to the market list. And obviously now the market list is 247. And go forward like this, especially checking the, the top cited papers. Even this one is dealing with Helicobacter pylori, so something that's it's very probably close to infectious disease, so should be him. This one as well. So you see that, well, with few minutes of your work, probably you can improve a lot your profile with all databases. Because now, if you go on the market list, by the way, in the market list, you see that all these papers, by the way, were from core collections. Even from the market list, you can run the citation report. And if you run the citation report, obviously, then you see that the H index now is 31. The citation are even more, 4,000 and so on. Okay? So if you obviously go at an upper level, all databases, probably you can improve a lot your profile. Okay? But not only for these reasons. By the way, if you are in all databases, you can also take advantage of, you have seen the number of citation was 4,000 something. But I was, sorry, I was in that level. Come on. Okay. If it's also hard to be distinguished, but I'm right now in core collection, you see, whilst before I was looking at the same papers but on an upper level. So if I do this, I should have done this before, you see that the number of citations are 3,009 because I'm looking only to the citation of Web of Science core collections. Whilst in the other case, I'm looking at the citations that are coming from the overall platform, so also from other 5 citational databases, the Russian, the Chinese, the WOS-CC, and so on and so forth, okay? So also keep in mind, because the H-index, and by the way, the H-index is now 30, so exactly looking at the same papers for the same authors, by the way, just choosing a different, let's say, landscape, I got completely different number. Completely different. In one case 30, in the other case 31, okay? So you see once again that here is the H-index 31, the other one is 30. Just this to give you an idea that even, I guess that Slovenia is like Italy, in some funding, in some grants, you are supposed to put the best H-index, or something like that. It's quite typical. But even in this case, the best H-index maybe is not so fair, because it obviously depends from where you are checking this H-index, because obviously if you check on Scopus with more journals, it will be higher. If you check on Google Scholar, it will be higher as well, and so on and so forth. So maybe a good idea would be obviously keep consistent the sets or the subset of journals in which you are calculating the H-index, because otherwise you can have whatever each index you want, just choosing a different subset of journals, basically. Very few last points. So this is, by the way, I got even more 33 because I spent more times to look on the poly. I can probably, if I spend even more time, I would go well over 33. And for your information, I think that Scopus is 30 something as well. So even in this case, just spending some time so you can look. Same type of exercises that I did before, but this for respect to the Slovenian. But this new example with some data, it's important also to show you something that that is not this slide. This slide, it's coming back to the importance of Backfiles of the past, because it's sometimes not, well, I'm sorry for this, because it's the projection that is changing the sides right here, the slides are much better, because it's maybe not well known, but Backfiles are very much important, are probably much more important than what we think. And over there, I just analyzed the cited references of you see right here, 427 Slovenian highly cited papers. So Slovenia, in the bunch of all the papers that your authors have authored, has 427 highly cited papers. So papers that are in the top 1% in this point, in their category for the publishing time and so on and so forth. Okay? And if you look at all the cited reference of these papers, so these are the top papers. What have cited these top authors or these top papers? That is the diagram of the distribution in the time of these papers. These papers, the highly cited papers, by definition, are very recent, last 10 years. So there is an overlapping if you want, but in any case are very recent, so 2018, 17, so beyond that area. But you see that in some cases they also cite, just to give you an idea, here in the year 2000 are more than 1,200 citations. So the 427 Slovenian highly cited papers are cited more than 1,200 times, papers of 200. So older, 15 years or something like that. And even more, in 1919, there are 400 papers that are coming from that area. Okay, just to give you an idea, in any case, of the importance of the Backfiles. But last but not the least, if you use whole database, this is one of the key characteristics. I don't know if you have ever experienced to use the whole database. Instead of searching Web of Science core collection, are you sometimes searching for all databases? No? Miguel does. Why? Well, because all databases has some key, or at least two important, and then I will definitely leave because I see that it's a certain hour. Two key important characteristics. The important characteristics is the topic search mapping, and as a consequence, if you want, what we call super article. Topic search mapping means that, let's have a look at this example right here. This is simply, it's very tough, but just to see that it works for a very tough example, it works also with simple statement. I hope to have it somewhere. So Web of Science core collection, and let's search for topic. This is the last. So let's search for this topic that was R2. Hoping, no, come on, there is not. So I have it here. Okay. But you can test whatever you want. I'm just testing this because the slide has been done with this. So even if you use something very simple, this is a quite complex statement to be searched, but it doesn't matter. Just search Web of Science core collection, and you should get 6,000 something, 6,473. In all of these 600, again, that statement is in the title, in the abstract or in the keywords, basically. What happens if I search the same in all databases? So same string, not in Web of Science core collection, but in the whole database environment, or if you want, you can call it in the citation connection environment. We call it citation connection to say the overall amount. Again, topic. Remember the number are 6,400 something, right? But in any case, I have on the slides. And now the number is 8,000, much higher, and there is no doubt with respect to that, right? Because I'm searching Web of Science core collection, Medline, BIOSIS, the Chinese database, you know, so on and so forth. So no doubt that I should have found out more, possibly more, papers. But what is really nice and important to see, it's the number of Web of Science core collection paper. Because in all databases, by the way, something that I haven't told you, you can also, once that you have searched for all databases, you can also refine your search and be on the database that you want to be. So for instance, Web of Science core collection, and you see that the number, you can refine, but the number is already there, it's different. So something happened. It's not 6,400, it's 6,700. And sometimes could also be bigger. So there are 300 and more papers that are, in some cases, disappeared. Or what happened, by the way? What happened is that when you use all databases environment, you are searching that string in all the different databases according all the different indexing criteria and policies. I'm meaning that that string is searched against Web of Science core collection in the 4 fields that I told you. If someone is from medical area, that string is also searched in Medline against some mesh terms, something that is not done on the Web of Science core collection. In BIOSIS, is searched in against the conceptual codes of BIOSIS, that is the typically indexation of BIOSIS, and so on and so forth. So any single database has some indexing policies, quite different. So you could be the most astonishing builder of search query in the databases, because obviously you need to be a good builder, but in any case it's quite difficult that you can know all the databases, all the different characteristics, to be able to get the best from each of them. So what the whole database is doing, it's supporting you, is exactly doing that, searching the same stuff in all the different databases. And obviously is investing more that you do the same in one single database. After that, obviously, then that paper could be or could not be in the single databases. So basically it's searching all the others in Medline, BIOSIS, and all the databases that are in Web of Science platform are supporting Web of Science core collection. And telling Web of Science core collection, look, there is this paper that you cannot take it, you cannot pick up with Web of Science core collection, but in any case, it's satisfying that query. And once they told this to Web of Science core collection, then obviously in the second query, the system is checking for Web of Science core collection papers, and that's it. They found out the Web of Science. So it's extremely important to search for all databases, because you always got more results. And what you will find out on these slides, exactly what I was looking for. There are 8,000 unique documents, the document that you have searched, but indeed these documents are also common to the different databases, and you see that anytime that you search in all databases, the last column, you got more results. And it's obviously, it goes like this for all the databases that you are using. So if you are a fan of Web of Science core collection, fine. If you are using Medline because you are using Medline, you get the same. You get much more hits of your search query if you use whole databases and then you refine for Medline. Okay? This is the first key suggestion. The second one is that some of these databases, now I just changed this, but we can also check directly right this. So I've filtered for Web of Science. I could filter for Medline, for instance. Why I'm filtering? Because I'm now looking for intersections or overlapping, if you want, or not overlapping of the two databases. So if I go in Web of Science, in all databases search now, I see that I have the list or the numbers, the set of papers that are in Medline, satisfying that query, and the set of papers that are in Web of Science Core Collection satisfying that query. So for instance, I could go on the advanced search and look for overlapping papers, papers that are in both databases, or vice versa, papers that are not, that are unique. So if I want to see which paper are in Medline and not in Web of Science Core Collection, quite straightforward, just to see, no, I couldn't find out the stuff, so I will not do it, but you can do just like you see right here, the query. Yeah, just, all right, you are too smart. I could copy. So I could do 5, not 4, meaning I want to have papers that are in the bunch number 5, in the bucket number 5, but not in the number 4. So in Medline, but not in Core Collection. And you got the unique papers that are in Medline, but not in Core Collection. Search rules wise, 5.4, it doesn't work. 5, not 4, doesn't work.
Because you're refining by database.
Huh?
It's because you're refining by database.
No, but anyway, I will look. Anyway, I would like to just show you the overlapping. The overlapping is the combining hand between this and this. If I combine, have the common paper.
But you want these 4, not 5.
5, not 4, but why?
You want 4, not 5.
But this is not, this is Medline and this is WOS.
Almost.
What is wrong here?
You want 4, not 5, because 4 is the one that has the highest number.
4?
Not 5.
No. For both. It's wrong, this one. Come on. Okay, sorry guys. Let me go back to the search history because I didn't pick up Medline. I picked up Medline and WOS. I both picked up both of them. That was the way it was not working. So just, in fact, the number is different, 5,000. Even because now I was looking at the end was exactly 1. It's not, so sorry for that. Search, again, in all databases, advanced, now 8, not 8 at Medline, not 4. And now it should work, because otherwise I give up immediately. Okay. It should work. I should click. Maybe if I click it works. Come on. Okay, now it's consistent. So these are papers that are in Medline but not in WOS 4. But now I want to have the combined between them. There should be obviously much less. So this one are Medline and this one are Web of Science Core Collection. I'm right? Yes, I'm right. Because the last thing that I want to say that there is a value also, in fact I got obviously the number, there is a value also in the overlapping of both databases, because if I click on these databases, in these papers, these are papers that are at least common in Web of Science Core Collection and in Medline. So it means what we call the super article, power. It means that you have the possibility to look to this paper from different angles, in different perspectives, with different data. So these are how it looks like, the paper in Web of Science Core Collection. So you have all the author, you have the researcher ID and a key table, you have the funding text, you see right here, so on and so forth. Okay, all the characteristics that you all know. If you look at Medline, so you can, bottom right, always look at the paper in a different databases. You have a different, you see, the mesh terms, you have a different categorizations of the records. Or again, if you like to have the taxonomic data, for instance, you can click on BIOSes. It's always the same article. Oh, come on, where I went. BIOSes. Okay. It's always the same article with the same abstract, obviously, and all the same data, but you see that the specific data of any database are different. So you can really collect all this information to get what we call the super articles, okay? For information coming from different databases that could, you know, make your paper, you know, give all the information that you want for your paper. I think, I also see in your eyes that it's quite too much. Sorry for that, for having going so far. There are any questions with respect to the, you know, ESCI more or less, ESCI being part of Web of Science Query Collection, and citation connection, that means, you know, extending your discovery experience to all the other databases. As Marco said, obviously, if there aren't any questions now, you can always drop me an email to Marco, whatever is, you know, the workflow. I would be more than happy to reply to any questions. Oh, there is a question.
Some slides ago you talked about document types that you consider such a letter or something like article. What are the criteria you use when you consider letters like scientific article? Only a number of references?
No. I was. No. It depends journal by journal. Because for any journal, we have, you know, a structure file of how that journal is structured. So Nature is quite typical to have other, you know, typical document types like letter, like commentaries, like news, notes, and so on. So our editors basically structure that journal in different time, and they know that, you know, the typical letter of Nature should be like this. And when it doesn't go like this, they maybe put the letter in the article bucket or vice versa. That's it. But it's not, there are not strict rules in general. I made it very simple to say, obviously, if you look at an editorial and a letter with 1,000 reference, you know, it's hardly to be defined as a letter and editorial. It's much more an article or a review, even better. Because if you go over maybe 100 cited reference, it could be a review or something like this. But it depends, really depends from journal to journal. If you have some specific type of journal that you want, I could connect you with our editors, and they, for, you know, for any journal.
And when some article remain letter, does it have impact on impact factor?
Yes. Yes.
All articles are,
In the impact factor, all papers, all document types could bring citations to that journal, basically. So the numerator is the overall number of citations for any, for the journal. That means even for something that you cannot check, that you cannot calculate by yourself, so the citation to the journal. If you go to the cited reference search, you will see that sometimes someone just cites Nature. Or, you know, just not a single article, not a single paper or a specific DOI or whatever you want. They just cite the journal. And it counts. Everything that is related to the journal, because it's the journal impact factor. Then is divided respect to which are, you know, the document type, the citable items that bring research, you know, information. And these are supposed to be article and review. That is the theory behind the impact factor.
and why arts and humanities does not have an impact factor, only social science, citation?
Well, this is historical because, you know, because there is a different citational trend. There are not so much cited, so it doesn't make sense to really, you know, compare 2 citations respect to 3, respect to 4. If you look at the number of the journals in the arts and humanities, they hardly have, you know, some citations. The number of 0 cited papers, it's huge, basically. even considering that typically in that area they are not publishing a lot of papers, typically in articles and reviews. Would have been very probably tricky in this case to define the citable items like article and review, because the typical artist doesn't publish articles or reviews. Or, you know, they mostly publish books, for instance, who is writing something. This is the same, by the way, in some areas for the conference, so engineering and computer science. But for your information, half of the conference are also articles, because are, in any case, published in journals. So in the case of conference, in any case, I mean, in that area, we calculate the impact factor, but in the case of arts and humanities, it doesn't really make sense. And by the way, it obviously pushes a lot of journals that are very much borderline, you know, religion, stuff like this. No, we are more philosophy, we are more social science than not humanities, because it makes a lot of difference, obviously, having the impact factor or not, even if you have a lower impact factor, probably. I don't know if there are some other reasons for arts and humanities, but I don't think so. It's, but you can calculate an approximate impact factor. Just have a look at it. Yeah, no, I'm sure, I'm serious. Oh, you know, it's always, as we say, by defect. My sense in English, by defect, by default. It's meaning that per difetto. Yeah, by difetto, because you cannot calculate what I was saying before. You know, all citations that are not in the Web of Science core collection, because obviously someone could think easily, well, I have all the articles, all the review, plus I calculate all the citations, it's done. But all the citations, some citations, if they are not linked to any source, because they are just citation to the journal, or wrong citation, like we are seeing, that we calculate, by the way, for the impact factor, you cannot find out, obviously, on Web of Science core collection, so easily at least. So it's one of the reasons why we spend months, basically, to release the JCR, because everything is checked by your information. In this very moment, publishers are checking as well the number of the impact factor. Will be released in the second half of June, but it's the number has been frozen on March, and then are duly checked. Some publishers are still not checking, and after even the first release, there are some publishers that are not you know, happy at all, or in any case, they want to check some numbers, and so you will find out. By the way, have a look at this in the period between June and September. Some journals, around 50 or maybe 100 journals. That are, you know, in a sort of limbus, meaning that they haven't yet finalized the impact factor because there are some controversial behind. Maybe we haven't checked some articles. The publisher is saying that there are more citations for some reasons, you know, something like this. But okay. Everything. Thank you very much for being up to now so attento, careful. Well, makes sense. I know makes sense. I also say hello to everyone that is looking to the registration right now. And again, for any questions, thanks for being here. For any questions, I'm at your disposal. Thank you.